Hi everyone, my name is Brandon, aka Smart Home Sellout, and today I want to talk about the Apollo Automation Dev-1. As we can see here, it is a very small little microcontroller. It's got USB-C, it's got a reset button on the left, a boot button on the right, and an RGB built into the PCB. So today I want to make sure to go over what the Apollo Dev 1 is and why you'd want to use it, how to flash the firmware via the ESPHome dashboard, learn to connect to Home Assistant via the ESPHome integration, add a small LED strip via the GPIO pins, and a bonus Bluetooth Low Energy proxy. So just to go over kind of what this is and when you'd use it. Um, this is great for DIY tinkerers, whether you're learning breadboards, whether you're trying to learn YAML and ESPHome, whether you want to do a DIY motion sensor, maybe a time of flight sensor, which is kind of like breaking a beam going up and down stairs, to turn a light on. Or even a small LED strip project. There's lots of neat things that you can do with a ESP32. And people might be more familiar with ESP8266 D1 Mini or an ESP32 Node MCU, but w- we're already developing, some of our other sensors here. The Air one is super popular. It's using that same ESP32C3 and, the MSR2, our MTR1. So people were asking for a DIY option from us. So, Dev1, here we are. So first things first, let's go ahead and get some firmware on it. It actually does not come with any firmware flash because it's a Devboard that, lets you flash whatever you want. So we'll go to new device in our ESPHome dashboard. So this, sorry, backing up a second. So this assumes that you already have a little bit of knowledge with ESPHome, or at least that you are familiar with the ESPHome dashboard. It is an add-on, so we would go to settings, add-ons, and ESPHome. So that's what this guy is right here. So hopefully you have this installed already. So I want to add a new device, but it's giving us a warning. It's letting us know, hey, we don't have HBS. So we can continue, but I'm actually cancel for now, and I'm gonna go straight to Edge. So Edge browser will let us kind of go through these steps a little more simply. So I went to the same thing, my Home Assistant.local, and then went to the ESP Home dashboard. So now I want to create a new device. So it's still giving us the same warning, but we'll be able to jump over in just a minute. So first we're gonna go continue. We're gonna call it the Apollo Dev 1. If you can't tell, I've done this once before. It is the ESP32C3. So now it gave us an encryption key. So I'm gonna click skip, and then we'll see here we have the dev1, but see how there's no visit? It doesn't really exist yet, right? I mean, it's not even plugged in. It's just it's a thought at this point. So the Apollo dev1, this it gave us some basics, and we like what it gave us. However, the framework, instead of Arduino, we want ESP IDF, and it's just kind of basic here, right? It doesn't. There's no there's basically it's just enough for it to connect to Home Assistant. This is okay with the YAML. However, if if we use my dpaste here, so this is a full set of YAML that has a little bit more, like, I don't know, goodies, if you will. I've defined the little light here, so it shows number of LEDs one, and what I've done is I basically given it a couple different effects, and this will allow us to control that little light. I've also gone a step further, and I've added a little bit of code that we're going to use later for our LED strip. And then we added some like quality of life stuff. So now when we go to the device page in Home Assistant, because we added this code at the bottom, it'll say ESP. It'll give us the option to reboot the device. It'll tell us the temperature of the microcontroller on it. Every 60 seconds, it will do the uptime, Wi-Fi signal, and it'll even give the IP address. So super neat. So what we want to do here to make sure that we copy this correctly is do raw, click raw, and then I'm gonna do Control A to select everything, and then Control C to copy it. and I'm gonna paste this, but I'm gonna delete a couple and go down and notice how like I'm starting right on the there's no spaces or anything. Start at the first line, right? Um, and then paste. So I'm gonna scroll all the way up here, and it'll give us a little error. So we don't need to read the error. I already know what's going on. What I want to do first is we just copied over my old API key as well as my OTA platform or my OTA password over the air like updates. So what I want to do is I want to copy this key, and I'm just going to copy from quote to quote API encryption key, and we're going to replace that one. And then we're going to go up and look for the OTA password and quote to quote copy and just replace quote to quote. Done. So now that we've done that, we can start way here at the beginning of line 35 and delete that. So now we're on line 1 and define project is the start, and if you look, that's exactly where we started here. The only thing we really just did is we just swapped these two API key and this OTA password with a new random one. And that saved us the trouble of having to manually um, generate those. So we've done that. At this point, we need to actually flash this firmware. So first, let's go ahead and click save. Oh, here, if you want to do any changes, so I called mine Apollo Dev1. Um, and then friendly name Apollo Dev1. So this is like this can't have any spaces or any caps in it, the regular name, but the friendly name can be exactly what you want it to show up as in Home Assistant. And we'll see Apollo Dev1 just like this. Okay, so save, and then we want to do install. So we're gonna do plugged into this computer. And now it's saying prepare to download. Let's just go ahead and let this finish. It should automatically compile this for us. It's doing it in the background. We're not able to see anything, but it's doing it. It'll then automatically download it, I believe. It might have me click a button, I forget. And then it'll have us open the ESPHome web to actually flash it. And the only reason that it's making us do that is because we're using HTTP, which is not a secure way to flash it here. So or to connect. So it's not ideal that we have to go this extra step. If you already have a HTTPS setup, whether you're doing like Nabucasa or you've done it through Nginx or Trafic or Caddy, something like that, then that's this step won't be necessary. You just install, click USB, and it lets you flash. We're gonna go an extra step here, but that's all right. So we just gotta let it finish on its preparing download. And there's really no way to speed this up. It could actually, take quite a bit longer than what you're seeing on my screen if you're using, a Raspberry Pi 3, or Raspberry Pi 4, even a 3, or especially 3. Even with like an SSD, I mean, ultimately it's a small little microcontroller. So, or I mean, a small little little CPU. And not a ton of RAM on little like small board computers like Raspberry Pi. So if you have those, it will take longer. I mean, like say you have a Raspberry, or I mean, Home Assistant Yellow or Green. I would expect it to take a little longer. Okay, so it's now done. Click Download Project. So we are using ESPHome Web. So we're gonna click the first one there. Boom, it just downloaded. Open ESPHome Web. Okay, so at this point, we need to plug in our Dev1 board. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this boot button. It's the right button or the button to the right of the USB-C. And I'm going to plug that in real quick. So I'm holding on the button, then plug it in, holding down, let go once. Once it's plugged in, then I can let go. Now click connect. It sees it. Connect. Um, let's see. Install. Choose file. The one we just made. Install. So connecting, erasing. I think it says 2 minutes. It probably isn't even going to take a full minute. All right, so we'll let that go. And there's really nothing else we can do in the meantime, so we'll just let it go. It'll go quick. These things really have a great Wi-Fi signal on them. Okay, so done. Okay, so now we actually have to unplug it and plug it back in. It's in boot mode, right? Before we held down boot and we plugged it in. So we're actually gonna unplug it, Plug it back in. And at this point, you could plug it into regular power. It doesn't have to be USB on your computer. Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna go back to my Firefox instance and let's see. Ta-da! It's actually a new one. But okay, so configure, submit, done. So now Home Assistant is literally just automatically found it on our network, and we have our Dev1 board, and you can see it has our IP address, the ESP temp that we talked about, even Unify Network found it and gave it a device tracker, and now it tells me that it's home, which is cool. Uh, so now we get to do the actual cool stuff. I'm gonna unplug it. Um, you don't want to connect wires or anything while it's plugged in. So now it is ready to connect something to. So what I've done here is I've created, or I've cut like a very small little LED strip. It's like 60, but I'm only using 30, and I'll explain that in a minute. And this is a temporary install. It's not a permanent installation. This is a proof of concept showing what you can do. Uh, so I've connected power to power, and I will soak it. I've connected three DuPont cables, a red for power, and I've matched up the colors just to make it to where it's super simple, right? Red to power, green to data, white to ground. And so if you look on your Dev1 board, I'll pull it up on the website. This first pin here, so if you're looking at it, you know, as if it's sitting flat facing or sitting flat like this. You see the 5-volt pin, then you see a G for ground, and then you see a 10. So the 5-volt is going to be our red. The G is going to be our white. That's our ground. And the data is going to be our green. That's going to be pin 10. And that's going to be GPIO10. So, and I'll show you that in the code here in a minute, but I want to go ahead and get this connected. So, remember, we want to triple check. Okay, we got red to red here, done. And what I've done here is I've just taken a DuPont connector, female or a male on this end, plugging it in, and I also in the LED strip itself, of course, you want the data line to be going in this direction. I'm using a WS2812B RGB LED strip. Um, and yeah, so we're gonna put the red for our 5-volt. Then we have ground GND, and remember that was our white. And then we have our data. That is gonna be pin 10. So we've just connected those first three: 5-volt, ground, pin 10. Red is 5-volt, ground is white, pin 10, green. Now that's connected. I'm going to plug in my USB. USB plugged in. So now, if I go, might take a second to boot. Come on. There it goes. All right, so now you can't see that, but the onboard light's turning on. But if I do the LED strip, you can definitely see that. And, on off is right there. If we click here or the bulb itself, it'll let us choose a color wheel. It's green, it's red, it's blue. Ah, cool. So that's pretty neat. We've basically taken a really small little microcontroller and connected 3 pins to an LED strip, and now we have a little project. Um, this is good for about 30 LEDs, really not even. If you want to power it, okay, so let me unplug it here and I'll show you what's going on. So, let's talk about limitations and ways around them. So, the way that we were doing that was via USB power. The downside is this is only up to like good to for about an amp, right? It's not good for multiple amps and especially not like a super long LED strip. But what you can do is we flashed it. It doesn't need USB anymore, really. It can get power from these pins. So if we just leave it connected just like that, it gets its power just hanging off the side. And this LED gives us power and ground. So we can take a power supply, I mean like a $10 5-volt power supply off of Amazon. So oh come on. So 5-volt 3 amp PSU. This guy right here would be perfect. You cut the end off of this and you put one red guy. Okay, so this is Wago connectors. I'll look those up for you and I'll have them linked in the description along with the power supply and LED strip, everything. The DEV-1, of course. So if I were to put power in one and ground in one, and I 3D printed this nice little holder. Now I can take power or put power from this power supply and ground from this power supply, and now I can power a very long LED strip as well as the microcontroller. The power supply has to be the same voltage, 5 volts, or you will fry your microcontroller. Don't fry it. Not good. All right, everyone. I think we're about to wrap it up. I do want to plug it back in and show you the code real quick here. Let's see. Plug that back in. Plug that back in. All right, so I want to go back to the code here. So um, just to show what we've done here, we have number of LEDs 1 there, and that corresponds to, oh man, I closed out of it. But it corresponds to the one LED that we just looked at in Home Assistant. Here, I can, um, so it corresponds to the onboard light there, this guy, and then we have a second LED strip, and we gave it 30 LEDs, and that's, whoops, that's the LED strip right there. Pretty neat. Um, oh, bonus Bluetooth proxy. Yeah, let's do that real quick. Okay, so if we look at the Air one, for example, here, I'll copy that code. So on this Dev one, I'm going to ESPHome dashboard. I'm going to Dev one. I'm clicking Edit. I'm going to the very bottom. Enter a couple times, and then I had to backspace. See how like it had spaces there? I want to get back all the way to the front, and then let's paste that, and I need to get rid of those little hashtags so that we're good to go. Okay, so Bluetooth proxy, active true, save, install wirelessly. So we're doing that, and you give this another minute or two. Um, well, not even to finish, and then now all of a sudden your Dev1 is also acting as a Bluetooth proxy, and so it can handle. I'll show you here. Let's see. So my printer room, this is a little, $5. Like if I go to this device, it's a little $5 Bluetooth sensor that's using another one of my ESPHome devices as a Bluetooth proxy, like to as a Bluetooth connection back to Home Assistant. So it's really neat, once this is finished, you've now made a tiny little LED strip controller that that also is a Bluetooth proxy for your Bluetooth devices. So hopefully this was helpful, everyone. Please let me know in the comments if you have any, you know, questions, if there's feedback on how I can help or how I can learn and get better at YouTube, please let me know. Um, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I really appreciate everyone coming out and watching, and thank you again for your time.